I decided to go and ask the busker why he didn't believe that open debate should be allowed to take place.
You don't agree with open debate, no? Not with somebody who. That means no.
Prepare yourself, this guy went to debating class.
We could be in for a quintessential tango taste sensation here. Why, yes!
You know when you've been tangoed.
And there we have it. A leftist defends his act of shutting down debate by likening me to a disabled person. I'm not really sure much more needs to be said than that. Probably not. But I'll just point out one thing. As someone with several disabled relatives, some who I've looked after for long periods of time, I completely forgot the opportunity this degenerate just handed me on a plate. You see, if I was a leftist, I could have screamed, wet myself, maybe attacked him, and used the defence of being horribly offended by him to get away with it. Of course, I'm not a leftist, so this has literally only just dawned on me now, months later. I'm just not quick-witted enough. All that went through my head was, yeah, you're just the prick I thought you were. But I'm glad it's on tape, and no longer our little secret. Note also that two other equally lovely leftists have just witnessed this. Did they challenge his behaviour? Tell him it was unacceptable? Nah, of course not. They knew it was the best argument all fucking three of them had. The woman on the left, holy shit, she was, I think, the first person I have met in the flesh who helps me understand what Jordan Peterson meant with his phrase, ideologically possessed. It reminded me of The Exorcist, although that had better dialogue. Watch her have an out-of-body experience. She just goes pop, apparently just due to me asking her Nazi friend a question. Get ready to be very afraid again. Oh, and I should point out, she'd just been waving her hand in my face, nearly in my eye, the whole time I'd been arguing with Mr. Eugenics over there.
Is there someone inside you?
Sometimes.
What's happening? Stop! It's burning! Oh, take it!
All right, let's see what to do. Keep away! The sour is mine. Can you take your hand out of my face? Fine, if you ask me nicely. You're very pleasant, very civilised. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm the one who's just asking a really polite question. I was actually interested in what your point of view was, by the way. I wondered why you didn't want to go and argue with him or make the point. Making music deliberately to stop the debate.
Just make a little mental note of this admission that he is deliberately drowning out the debate. Obviously, it's blatantly obvious, and he actually said the same thing to various people. I also heard no end of leftists come up to him and congratulate him on doing so, and each time he gave him a little wink and a nod, and it's obvious. Everyone knows it's obvious, but I wanted to make a point of it here, the fact that he admitted it, because it will be particularly relevant shortly.
Exactly, that is the purpose.
So, this interaction has taught me a few things. In particular, I learned that I am apparently delusional, from another world, ugly, what was the other thing? Oh yeah, and one of these. I think they did actually help me change my position on one thing though, as I can now see the sense in the famous modern leftist motto of don't debate the far right. No, you're absolutely right, that's definitely not in your best interest, is it? If this is the best you have, I'm actually also starting to see some real logic behind the milkshake attacks even. If you can't argue, but you refuse to do nothing, well, what's left but milkshakes? Apart from screaming abuse and physical assaults, obviously. Oh, and I nearly forgot earlier on, he also taught me that Carl wants to rape women. This is just such a perfect demonstration of how possessed these leftists are. Talk about losing your shit. If you stop to think about what you just said, it's utterly insane. Firstly, Carl's a married man with no criminal convictions as far as I'm aware. Secondly, as I've talked to him myself, which you refuse to do, at least for 20-30 minutes over a beer after one of the events, I'd put a shitload of money on the fact that Carl is probably more opposed to rape than you are, Mr. Take the Piss Out of Disabled People. Thirdly, and most ridiculous of all, if Carl wanted to rape women, how would you be the only one to know? He wants to rape women. It's unbelievable. How dare you? Fine, so you're a lefty little turd with a secret intolerance for people less fortunate than yourself, and you're looking for a way to sell more CDs on the street, and you love the lefty activist image because it really helps in the music scene, and maybe you just loved all the attention, and even all of that I could understand. But boy, you need to come up with something better to justify your actions than he wants to rape women. I would have far more of a solid footing on which to base a comment like, that trumpeter wants to wipe out handicapped people and everyone with learning difficulties. But I wouldn't say it, because I have no idea if it's true, and I think it's probably not. All I do know is that you clearly have enough disdain for such less fortunate people yourself, that you can use them to insult people that you don't like asking you a rational and polite question. I know that much about you, because I've just fucking seen it. You've put it on display. I haven't seen Carl raping anyone recently, have you? What a true Marxist you've shown yourself to be, Tony. And on that note, while you're busy slandering and defaming an honest, hard-working family man who's committed no crimes and hurt no one, let's take a peek at Tony King, shall we?
Well, amongst this month's nominees is a film produced and directed in the tiny creekside village of Fiocc in Cornwall.
Oh, it's so beautiful, and I shot it in black and white because it just really suited the mood of the film, you know. It's beautiful. It's the story of a younger gentleman who's having a hard time. Oh, it was unbelievable. So I was sitting in Smoky Joe's cafe. I opened the email and there it was. It's been chosen and congratulating us on our work. And, I'm quite an emotional guy and I started crying. And there's all these truck drivers around me in this cafe and, oh my goodness me.
Oh, what a kind-hearted, gentle, touchy-feely person you are. That beta male act, it goes down great at the BBC, doesn't it? Such a nice thing to use the film to touch on the important issue of a young gentleman who's having a hard time. I know someone like that. He's called Carl Benjamin, and he's had a terrible time of late. Some arsehole publicly slandered him to complete strangers by suggesting he's a predatory sex criminal in disguise. This is the public-facing Tony, isn't it? The Tony when he knows he's on display. So your film was nominated for an award. I was quite impressed. So I had to check out some of your work. I was soon unimpressed again. I found one you did called MGTOW Dave, a sad and upsetting film about a father and son. A short film about the pain of fathers losing their children due to the corrupt court system and shitty ex-wives.
That's right. Get the dads out of the kids' lives. That's the plan. Fatherlessness society. That's the plan. The big New World Order.
Tony, are you a secret UKIP supporter? Are you a secret far-right fascist, Nazi, misogynist, etc.? It sounds a bit like that to me. Drunk man, bitching about men being phased out of society. I don't know what the hell you're doing over there on the far left, pal. Didn't you get the memo? That viewpoint has been reassigned to the far right, mate. Come on over, it's lovely and warm on the side of real values and social progress.
Well, that's the plan. Get the dads out of the house. Own the kids. Completely support the mothers. Marry them to the state. Give them 24 grand or whatever it is a year. Yeah, give up the mothers everything and strip the fathers of everything.
Yes, Tony, you've hit the nail on the head. And who strips men of all this and feeds it to women to marry them to the state? The left. Why? To get guaranteed votes from all those people they bribe with social welfare, meanwhile destroying families, ruining children's lives, like your own, bankrupting the nation and forcing taxes to go up, predominantly paid by those men who they're slowly pushing towards extinction. This is the entire political strategy of the left. This is how they got votes, and this is how they keep votes. Jesus, mate, if they find out you're hanging around with them while believing all this radical far-right pro-male bullshit, you're done for, pal. You clearly didn't get the memo about male privilege either. Jesus. Run while you still can. Run. Run for your life.
What a brilliant plan, yeah. I'm sure, my son, you are going to be impressed with what's gone on when you're a bit older. Not.
Yes, Tony, you're my man. And just like the Brexit vote, predominantly voted for by older people who have, as you rightly point out, seen a bit more and understand a bit more about the real future because they've seen a bit more of the real past. You're a UKIP man, born and bred. I'm convinced of it. The title of this video is MGTOW Dave. That obviously got my attention, considering where you appear to be on the political spectrum, and certainly compared to where your fans in Truro assumed you sat on the political spectrum while you were busy drowning out a free speech event by another English father. Joking aside, this is something I often find, and it constantly infuriates me. Take any far left type person, the type who love protesting against the establishment and all that, and you'll always find one issue, at least one, on which they are not far left, but very much in lockstep with what are now termed the far right. Why is this? Because for most people, life only deals them one personal tragedy or gross injustice where they actually learn how dangerous this far left shit really is. And so on that one issue, they often keep bloody quiet when having dinner with their lefty friends. I wish this would help wake some of you up, and I suppose it does occasionally. But the truth is, it's just way too fashionable to be lefty and way too unfashionable to oppose the left. As that just makes you far right, and who the fuck wants to be labelled far right? I certainly don't, and I'm not. I'm just not far left, and I believe there's a huge gulf of space in between being far left and being far right. It's the space occupied by people like Carl Benjamin, a traditional liberal. You see, everything has moved. The left did the removals. They shipped out all the suburban settlements around their city and banished them to exile in the evil land of the Nazis. This prevents debate between the two sides. It puts such a gulf between them that you can just throw stones and missiles at this other group because they're so far away we can't ever bridge that gap and actually have a conversation. Think about your trumpet, pal. Oh, and I should also point out, you claim to be anti-authority and anti-establishment, but the establishment is left-wing now. It's not like the 80s anymore, dude. So if you're anti-establishment, you need to pack up your bags and move out of that lefty neighbourhood pronto. Being on the left and claiming to be anti-authority in 2019 is like a communist who thinks he's better than everyone else. Or the climate change protester who rides in daddy's BMW X5 to get to the protest on time. Or the anti-fascist protester who says don't debate, just smash them because we're right and we know it. I'm seeing a whole new side to you, Tony, and I kind of like what I'm seeing, in all honesty. It's just such a shame you're only woke on one subject, and that's the subject which has brought you the most trauma and suffering you'll probably ever see in your life. Funny how being a real victim of real injustice, as a result of the left, helps people wake up to a systemic injustice so quickly. I wonder, if you'd have been a parent of a Rotherham rape gang victim, would you be a bit more of an activist on the subject of unbridled immigration of often radicalised ISIS supporters? What if you'd been a teenager in Luton who'd watched his friends and relatives attacked, raped, beaten or murdered by radical Pakistani Muslim gangs? And then you spent years of your life trying to wake the country up to the problem and the police and the councils, only to be repeatedly persecuted by the judicial system and locked up for merely talking about it. Would you be doing short films about the corrupt government and judicial system then? Food for thought, maybe? I wondered if suppressed was a synonym for shit, but my confusion about where that word came from was justified by dictionary.com. Powerful words, Tony, and you won't find many on the centre-right who would disagree with you, but you'll find plenty in your neck of the woods. Quick question for you. Having read those words at the end of your short film, fatherlessness is an obscenity, no child should be denied their human right to a father. I could not agree with you more, but I want to know, next time you're drinking with your left-wing friends, would you please put that statement to them and stand by it? That means when the lesbian or LGBTQ, pedo, etc. activist in your group says, "What about lesbian couples having children?" You can't bend the rules then. Remember you said no child should be denied, and that it's a human right for a child to have a father. I want to see how quickly you get eaten by your own, because the left always eats their own. And then you finally wake up and realise you cannot have values and beliefs like those while being on the side of the modern far left. I'll warn you though, the phrase they will scream in your face, hopefully without physically assaulting you, although I wouldn't count on it, is, "Two women can do just as good a job as a man and a woman." I wish I could be there to see how you deal with that one, but I've got a feeling I think I know how it'll go. One of two ways, actually. Number one, you give up your views under the threat of ostracism, violence, being called a Nazi or whatever, and you keep your friends. Or two, you give up your friends and you keep your values and your beliefs. I hope it's number two.
A while ago, I brought out a new CD. I've been selling them on the street, and lots of people buying them, lots of real great compliments about my sound, which I'm so humbled by.
Humbled? Said like Miles Davis himself. Humility really should come with the territory, mate. You're a busker. Did you forget? But sorry, I still just don't buy it. You may be many things, Tony, but humble ain't one of them. I don't think I've seen a more vain selection of pictures than I found on your Facebook page. Christ, my mate's daughter wants to be a model, and even her portfolio of pictures don't look as staged and vain as your selection. I also noticed your short film with full male nudity. I think I'd go with exhibitionist before I would go with humble. Hell, maybe even a tad perverted. I mean, come on. The video shows you wake up on a bed naked, walk to the window and open it naked, walk down to the kitchen naked, make a phone call to the woman you spent the night with, where she obviously compliments you on your bedroom talents.
Well, you also behave in bed like a female pirate then.
Artistic licence is so handy, isn't it, Tony? Then take a shower, naked again, then play a few scales on your horn, as you like to call it, which speaks to the idea of you being mildly perverted, and that's the end of the film. Oh, but of course you converted it to black and white, so it must be art. No, mate, I don't buy humble, not for a second. Utterly self-absorbed and as vain as a princess? Yeah, that's where I've got you pegged. And that's precisely why I think you loved every minute of both the day and the follow-up praise you got for your drowning out of the event in Truro. Well, at least hopefully some of these people will see the other face of Tony now. It's always nice to give people both sides of an issue so they can make a proper informed choice. You do agree with protest and criticism, don't you?
There's lots of conversations about my biggest influence in the trumpet playing at the moment, which is Miles Davis.
Oh shit. It's funny because the biggest influence on my tennis is Roger Federer.
I even played in the piazza in Truro one day, and there was a UKIP demonstration for some bloke that was there, and I was already there busking, and it got in the news all over the country. And I'm the jazz trumpet busker that tried to drown him out, apparently. Well, I was already there busking. But anyway, that's great. I wish they'd mentioned my name, though. Anyway, I don't suppose they knew it, even. It's cooler not to be known, isn't it?
I really don't know, Tony. I don't spend my life trying to be seen as cool. Trying to fit in. Trying to be accepted and liked, regardless of how badly I have to behave in order to achieve that goal. Nobody buys that, by the way. You know, your pretense that you don't care that they didn't mention your name. But since you didn't get priority number 1, you'll make do with priority number 2, being cool. How sad. See, I've got a feeling I know how things went. Now let's assume you didn't choose that day, that time, that place in order to stifle the UKIP event. Let's just give you that and assume you turned up, as you said, just to busk, and you were surprised as anyone to see UKIP turn up, right where you were playing. What you could have done is played, normally, at normal volume levels, and shown people your skills, sold some CDs, and actually provided some musical accompaniment to the event, rather than blasting it at 10 times the volume you usually play at, according to friends of mine who see you quite frequently down there. If that happened, then you were probably approached by the lefty types, and patted on the back, etc., persuaded to blast it super loud. You already had a larger amp than usual, though. And here's where you made the wrong decision. In my view, you decided to go with the sheep, to follow the herd, to be Mr. Popular, and do the lesser thing in order to satisfy the ambitions of your ego. To do what is less progressive and useful to society, simply because you were influenced by those around you, who were influenced by those around them, who were influenced by Twitter or news or whatever. Imagine what sort of man it would have taken to say, well, I don't know much about this guy, so I'm not going to do anything against him, I'm just here to play my trumpet. It would have taken a brave, sincerely humble, and above all, free-thinking independent man who doesn't need the adulation of those around him every waking minute. But the high road was out of reach to you, wasn't it? So you caved into peer pressure and sheep mentality. Or really, it was more like wolf pack mentality. Picking on the truly courageous man, who is capable of standing on his own 2 feet, making up his own views based on rationality and reason, and accusing him of wanting to rape women. I think the reason you said that is because you had absolutely no clue about this man. I heard you actually say that at one point too. I don't even know who he is or something like that. All you had was what a few lefty types had probably said to you in the morning, and you chose not to investigate or even question those comments. You just went all in and believed them, and then went a step further and not only repeated what they said but embellished it like Chinese whispers into "he wants to rape women." Even the radical feminists who, with the abusive signs they painted especially, that even they didn't say he wants to rape women. Even they didn't mention him raping women. So no, you ain't humble, Tony. You are self-obsessed, you're gullible, you're irrational, you're insecure, and above all, you're a bully. Disguised as a caring person who just wants peace, love and acceptance, man. Well, why don't you try showing some of that instead of just dishing out the words? Then people would be able to believe you. Actions, Tony, they speak louder than words. Anyone can say something. Doing it, that takes a lot more guts.
Over the next year, I'll be working on another album featuring some collaborations with some fantastic musicians from down here in Cornwall and beyond, hopefully. So that's about it from me. So cheers to everyone. It's the end of the day. I think it's wine o'clock, so I've got a nice little glass of cheeky red here. Have a great evening, everyone, and I'll see you out there. And come and say hello. And if you haven't got a CD, come and get one. Anyway, lots of love, guys. Lots of love. Be kind. The kinder you are, the closer you become to the divine. Okay, lots of love. Ciao.
On that note, I think it's time to move on. But just before doing so, a few final words for you, Tony. I don't think you're a terrible person. I think you're, well, just like most people, really. You have some faults, you make some mistakes. Just like every other person on earth. But I hope you're reconsidering things, and if you really are the loving and accepting kind of guy you advertise yourself as, I think your best course of action would be an apology to Mr. Benjamin. It's your choice, of course. It could be a brief public statement of some kind on your Facebook page, at least retracting your claim that he wants to rape women. If not an apology to the many people who wanted to hear him when he spoke in Truro, maybe, who you prevented from being able to do so. You may initially think that a public statement would not be very cool, but actually I think it would be about the coolest thing you could do right now. And the few people who follow your social pages will see that you're genuinely a man who is kind and accepting of others who just fucked up. And they will think better of you for it, if they're the type of people whose opinions are worth caring about anyway. On the other hand, you could do nothing and prove the very opposite. I leave it in your capable hands. If nothing else, I just hope this has shown you that whilst it's easy to attack other people who have a high profile and make for an easy victim for bullying and abuse, you are no more perfect than the next man. None of us are. But how you correct your own mistakes, or whether you do so at all, will be the measure of you.